This Polygon Syncline C5 Hardtail has been my cross-country race bike for over a year now. It's a lightweight carbon fiber rocket. Last year I dedicated my season to XC racing. I documented my efforts and made a video about it. After that experience, a lot of people came to me and told me that I would probably do better on a full suspension XC race bike. But I had a couple issues with that. One, a proper lightweight full suspension bike that's ready to race is expensive. And two, I'm not sure I believe that I'd be faster on a full suspension. I am an avid hardtail enthusiast and I'm very accustomed to riding one. And on smooth terrain, a full squish won't hold a candle to a properly set up XC race hardtail. Are you feeling triggered? Well, don't run to the comments section just yet, because I went out and bought a full suspension XC race bike. This is the XF979 RC. Unless you're from Europe or follow UCI World Cup XC racing religiously, you've probably never heard of Superior Bikes. Superior Bikes has been around since the early 1990s, and its mountain bike focus has been almost entirely on XC racing. They have multiple race-ready build specs in both hardtails and full suspension. The same goes for their road bikes and their gravel bikes. Superior is a fixture on the UCI World Cup circuit, and the brand, along with its riders, have made multiple podiums. The company just began offering bikes in the US through my friends over at Bikes Online. For the record, they did not send me this bike. I bought this bike with my own money at the price offered on their website. In fact, I didn't even tell them I ordered it. This was a major impulse purchase, and there's a good reason why. The XF979 RC is spec'd like a $6,000 bike, but it's being sold for a ridiculous price. Bikes Online currently has the bike listed at an MSRP of $3,299, and it's currently on sale for $2,899. Let's take a look at this bike and see what you get for your hard-earned money. The XF979 RC has an ultra-lightweight, high-modulus carbon frame that weighs a claimed 1,717 grams. Out of the box, with inner tubes and without pedals, the size medium came in at an astonishing 26.7 pounds. It runs a single pivot FlexDay suspension platform which offers weight savings, lower maintenance, and a zippier ride. It features something they call the block lock system, which is similar to Trek's knock block system, which prevents the handlebars from over-rotating in a crash. Rear travel is 100 millimeters. Up front, the XF979 gets 110 millimeters of travel. And the suspension components are provided by DT Swiss. I bet you didn't know DT Swiss makes suspension. It's not common here in the US, but they're readily available in Europe. The model here is the 232-1 series suspension. Yeah, it's a mouthful. These components are specifically designed with cross-country racing in mind. They're designed to be ultra lightweight, with damping characteristics focused on XC racing. The fork is ultra lightweight, coming in at 1,510 grams. DT Swiss shaved off all unnecessary weight from the fork while maintaining as much stiffness as necessary. The rear shock is also lightweight at 255 grams. Both components use DT Swiss's Lineaire air spring and a damper they call In Control. The Lineaire air spring is designed to be supple off the top when open. The Lineaire system consists of a bypass located in the air chamber. The bypass ensures that the pressure inside the negative air chamber is higher than the positive air chamber when the fork is fully extended. In simple terms, this reduces the breakaway force required to cycle the fork, which makes the suspension better on small bumps. The air spring also accepts volume tokens to increase the progressivity of the fork if needed. The in-control damper on the 232-1 is adjusted by a handlebar-mounted 3-position switch which controls the fork and the shock simultaneously. The open mode fully opens the high and low-speed compression circuits for maximum traction. The drive mode will close the low-speed compression circuit and rely solely on the high-speed circuit to minimize energy loss while pedaling. And the third setting is the lockout. This closes both high and low speed compression circuits and is useful during hard sprints, especially on paved sections commonly found on XC courses. The drivetrain is by Shimano and it's a mix of 12-speed XT and SLX components. You get an XT derailleur and crankset, and an SLX shifter and cassette with a 10 to 51 tooth range. You also get a Dior 6100 Hyperglide Plus chain, so you get that sweet, smooth shifting. Hyperglide Plus is awesome if you have to shift under load. The wheel set is an area where this bike comes up a bit short in my opinion. The wheel set is the DT Swiss M1900 spline. These are alloy trail wheels with 30mm internal width rims and DT Swiss 370 hubs. The tires are a combo of Schwalbe Racing Ray and Racing Ralph XC tires. The brakes are also courtesy of Shimano, and they are the 2-piston XT model. The touch points, such as the alloy bars, stem and dropper, are from a brand called One. They are also out of the Czech Republic. The stem is 60mm and has a 7-degree rise or drop depending on your preference. The dropper lever is from Shimano and is really nice. The saddle is the Physique Terra Adon X5 and is super comfy. Overall, I was impressed with the fit and finish of this bike. Everything is high quality and was flawlessly assembled. The brakes were perfectly aligned, the drivetrain perfectly tuned. Everything was where it should be. The carbon frame and its black matte finish looks expensive. And the One brand parts are very nice. The bike's geometry is interesting. The size medium has a 448mm reach, and the effective seat tube angle is relatively steep for an XC bike at 75 degrees. The head tube angle falls in at a traditional 68 degrees, and the chainstay is pretty short at 428mm. That surprised me. I expect XC bikes to be a bit longer in the chainstay. I looked up a few XC race bikes to see how they compared to the XF979. The new Specialized Chisel full suspension runs a 437mm chainstay. The Epic 8, also from Specialized, runs a 435mm chainstay. The BMC 4-stroke and the Pivot Mach 4 SL were both closer to the Superior at 432mm. Of course, chainstay length is only one number among many, and I'm curious to see how these geometry numbers affect the handling on the trail. From a sizing standpoint, the size medium, for me, was slightly too big. Something I suspected when I ordered it. Now how did I know? Well, the seat tube has a little kink halfway down, which told me most droppers were not going to fit in all the way. And the 175mm cranks that come with the bike, I knew were going to be too long for my taste. To solve for that, I made two changes to the bike. First, I swapped the dropper for a 1-up components dropper. It has a much shorter stack height than any other dropper on the market. And the other change involved swapping out the 175mm XT cranks for a set of 170mm XT cranks. These were two easy and relatively low-cost changes that gave me plenty of room on the bike. Now this is a classic example of why knowing your geometry numbers is important. I was on the edge between a size small and a medium. Technically, I would have fit comfortably on the size small, but I chose the size medium for the longer reach number. I had a hunch the seat tube and long cranks were going to be problematic, but I wanted the longer reach and wheelbase of the medium. The changes made a big difference in fit. Now I have plenty of room on the bike, and I expect this bike to be a very stable and fast setup. One of the other changes I made was to swap out the saddle for this WTB Silverado titanium rail saddle. It's a sleek and comfortable saddle. The stock Physique saddle is very nice, but I'm going to use that on a future bike. So I didn't mind making these changes. The extra expense for the cranks and the dropper was easy to swallow given what I paid for the bike. I took the bike out a handful of times so far. On the trail, the XF979 RC did what you'd expect. The frame feels torsionally stiff, and the bike gets up to speed quickly. Climbing into hard gears was always an option, and the 36-tooth front chainring says this bike means serious business. I'm going to need a little bit of time to get used to the gearing, but this gearing is ready to hit some high speeds. Now, I will say it doesn't feel as quick as my Hardtail, but keep in mind I'm still running inner tubes, so I expect the bike to get quicker once I set the wheels up tubeless. The DT Swiss wheels are reliable and run the 370 hub. The engagement on the 370 hub is not to my liking, but they are ultra quiet.
Excuse me, guys.
Perhaps a little too quiet. But the wheels tracked well and there wasn't much to complain about. At some point I plan to upgrade to a carbon wheel set, but not yet. And what about the DT Swiss suspension? Well, color me impressed. When opened, the fork and shock combo ate up small bumps and delivered great traction. The compression setting changes of this system might be the most noticeable of any suspension system I've used. The middle drive mode firms up the bike and makes for some very efficient pedaling. In this mode, the suspension soaks up the bigger hits while remaining firm on that initial stroke. When locked out, the suspension is solid, making sure that every watt you lay down is directed to the wheels. The shock and fork work seamlessly together. And setup is simple. Just set the sag and rebound and go ride. The lockout switch is intuitive once you get used to it. It took a couple of rides to be able to reach for it without thinking. The Shimano XT SLX drivetrain is what you'd expect. Shift quality in true Shimano fashion is buttery smooth. The Hyperglide Plus system is known for being very quiet and for its ability to shift under load. The XT derailleur and cranks combined with an SLX cassette and shifter are a great combo when trying to spec a bike at a fair price. The Shimano XT brakes surprised me. Now, I'm not a fan of the on-off feel of Shimano XT 4-piston brakes, but these 2-piston XTs felt really good. They had good power and modulated better than I expected. I haven't spent enough time on this bike yet, but so far I'm pretty impressed with how this bike rides. I'm still not convinced that it's faster than my Polygon Syncline, but I'm keeping an open mind. I'll be comparing them over the next few months, and I plan to keep only one. If you want to see how they compare, please hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to be notified of new videos. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. It all costs nothing, and it makes me happy. And if you're interested in learning more about the XF979 RC, I left a link to it in the description. If you opt to buy one, it helps out the channel and helps us to bring you more content in the future. I have to admit, I'm kind of baffled by the price on this bike. I'm guessing this is a blowout price to introduce the brand in the US. Because in Europe, this bike sells for $5,000. And similar bikes here in the States sell for that or even more. It's a no-brainer for me. And for that reason I snagged it as my personal bike. But will it replace my beloved Syncline? Only time will tell. I hope you enjoyed this leg of my journey. Thanks for watching.